Hey everyone, Weebtooner here. So I've been delaying the second part of this video for quite some time. One of the reasons is because I didn't really have much else to say after that first video. In fact, I'm actually wondering why I even made this one, even though I have a full list of other works that I do want to complete. Truth be told, I actually started this original script back in October last year, and I never really finished it. I figured it'd be a waste to leave it, so you get a part 2. That being said, this part 2 mostly covers the major events from chapters 16 to 25, and it may not sound like much, but believe me when I say there's quite a bit of stuff packed within these 10 chapters. More than I expected initially. I'll prelude the second part of the review by stating this webtoon is a bundle of sadistic joy. If you're anything like me, vicariously making fictional characters suffer provides some measure of guilty pleasure, and it really warms up the insides. I believe I stated in my last video that this is currently a revenge story with somewhat subtle hints of blossoming romance. Today, I plan to discuss some of the key events that made chapters 16 to 25 so memorable and why we readers keep checking up on our favorite webtoon provider sites for this delectable story. I'll summarize the key events while ignoring the subjectively less relevant parts in this section. I'm assuming the only people who would ever watch a part 2 video are those who've already read the series and have already decided whether they wish to continue or not. As such, I'll emphasize what I think are some of the more memorable moments that I hold near and dear to my sadistic little heart. I briefly mentioned it in the last video, but as a reminder, we begin chapter 16 with Arya accidentally discovering that her hourglass has the ability to manipulate the current timeline. By turning it, she can undo the events that occurred in the last 5 minutes, and it really goes to show that the title of this webtoon, The Villainess Reverses the Hourglass, is not just figurative. The only drawback is that Arya becomes fatigued and even surmises that her life force may be drained each time she uses it, as you may or may not remember from that last previous video, and I honestly don't know why the author decided to include this bogus item. I wasn't really too crazy about its inclusion in the story. That opinion has been somewhat revised after the author and illustrator spent a surprising number of panels showing us how petty Arya can be. Despite having suspicions that utilizing said hourglass may shorten her lifespan and energy reserves, she uses it anyway. And what does she use it for? Pigging out, insulting her instructors, and most importantly of all, harassing her stepsister, Miel. Apparently, Arya is completely willing to risk her life to commit petty harassment. It takes a very special kind of hate to dedicate yourself to so worthy a cause. Apart from acting like a titular, small-time villainess, which is actually a great inclusion into the story by the way, Arya actually decides to do something productive and educate herself like every other reincarnated, possessed former villainess. She's still keeping up correspondence with her favorite garden vegetable for all the wrong reasons, of course. Can't be forgetting to put the moves on her sister's boy toy, you know. We even see Arya attend a party at Sarah's behest to use the opportunity to counteract her terrible reputation. Somehow, the webtoon constantly tries to remind us of Arya's villainous nature by constantly shoving it in our faces that Sarah is simply a means to an end. And for what it's worth, I do think Sarah is a tool just begging to be used, but deep down I suspect Arya actually cares. For a bland minor character, Sarah seems to have a lot of screen time. Now where was I? Yes. Arya's getting all chummy at her birthday party when Miel decides to crash it. In reality, Miel's just making an appearance to show just how inconsiderate Arya is for not inviting her own sister to her little party. This scene is really here to show us that Miel is striking back in her own little way. It doesn't mean too much on its own, but it does transition nicely into our next scene where Miel, Arya, and the vegetable all meet. Miel makes her move on Oscar before handing him off to Arya, knowing just how awkward Arya's next move will be. But our little devil just pins a brooch on Veggie-kun here and asks if they could be pen pals. This maneuver is both brilliant and absolutely ruthless. I love it. 'Tis a great way to start an extramarital affair. Even Oscar knows that he shouldn't play this game, but he simply can't refuse. To be completely fair, I don't think I would have been able to refuse were I him in this scenario either. Well played, my fair lady. Well played. Flawless. Stunning. Your mastery of the couple cracking arts is truly... Our girl is so bewitching that she even decides to put the moves on her dearest maid, Jessie. Okay, granted, Arya does feel bad about ending Jessie in her previous life, but this is certainly a new way to show remorse. I mean, Arya even does the hand on the wall thing. The, you know, that thing. But our girl is smart too. She introduces the carrot and stick method to her maids. Be loyal and get bling bling. Betray and get spayed. Indeed, Arya's next target is one of Miel's maids, Anne. To that end, she has a moment with Sarah, then a moment with Anne, then a moment with me, then a moment with Anne, and sows the seeds to reap future rewards. In short, she plays the people around her. That is pretty much all she's been doing up until now, but 20 chapters in, and we are still going strong with it. I'm kinda glossing over it, but Arya actually does spend a bit of time manipulating Anne over to the dark side, hinting at lavish rewards, promise of a better future, powerful connections, and just doesn't stand a chance against her. Arya operates like a demoness. Marvelous, breathtaking, beautiful! What's that? You need another slave? My body is red. After seducing everyone who's anyone without a Y chromosome in her local vicinity, Arya remembers that Oscar has yet to send a letter. Can't say I'm too surprised. I'd probably put some distance between myself and this minx if I were Oscar. It also happens to be Miel's birthday party, and Count Rosent returns to his favorite daughter. And he's also brought company. Another target calling himself Lanepino. Notable because Arya has no recollection of his existence from her previous life. A handsome man with handsome features. Observe, ladies and gentlemen, this is what a handsome man looks like. Eyes are overrated. But just in case you are curious, he has purple irises. Lane also ends up a victim. You see this? Miel only managed to open one eye. Now see this? Arya immediately warrants 2 eyes. And a sparkle scene. So moving on, Arya continues to do Arya things on Miel's birthday. And in case you haven't been paying attention, it's... all of a sudden, Veggie-kun arrives. What? He hasn't even responded to Arya's letter by now. I sentence you to the compost bin. Begone, foul vegetable. All jokes aside for a moment, Arya's half-brother Cain even considers joining the cult of Arya. Now, it's at this point I'm starting to think that the authors are pushing it just a little too far. Poor Oscar, the fool can barely resist Arya from a distance. What makes him think he even has a snowball's chance in hell of resisting her in person? To salvage this mess, he decides to continue staring at Arya in front of Miel, and later visits her in private. Oh, I'm sorry, was this supposed to be my birthday present? Oscar desperately latches onto Arya's claim of them being friends. Sadly, this tuber actually believes it. Despite Lanepino's unexpected existence and the mysteries surrounding his master, events unfold as expected as Sarah experiences her own Cinderella story with Marcus Vincent, a man so simple that he becomes fascinated with a damn handkerchief. So far, all the men in this story are basically all dumb puppets, except my man Lane. He's a handsome dumb puppet. Now, this event doesn't seem at all special at first glance, but take note that during the discussion of Sarah's Cinderella story, Anne the maid has been present in the background and now has proofs of a rags to riches story. Kinda. Arya realizes this and tightens the noose ever further to bring Anne over to the dark side. My girl is layering these plans and intersecting them flawlessly. I can practically see her brain leaking out of her skull. Now at this point, Lane was likely sent by Asher earlier to gather info on the impressionable young lady at the pawn shop in earlier chapters. Arya is aware of this and probes for information herself. Whilst doing so, it's revealed that the credit for Count Rosent's recent successes went to Miel, despite Arya providing that crucial info earlier on. She throws a fit of rage and uses the hourglass to undo her little venting session. At the very least, this scene serves to galvanize Arya's resolve to undo her family once again. So with this newfound fire, she mercilessly tears Miel a new asshole again. And Lane starts to suspect that Miel might not actually be the intelligent lady he was sent to meet. I also like to point out that Lane has basically been keeping both eyes open for the duration of Arya's beatdown. Right, so I summarized those 10 chapters as best I could, but you may have already surmised that it's essentially a series of events. These events may seem a tad mundane, but it beautifully encapsulates why Arya is such a great character. We, the audience, are being shown Arya at her best. All of these events are building up her character. We are being shown how a classic villainess operates. The schemes, manipulation, and cold rationality are all flavored with a hint of rage. It's petty, primal, and elegant all at once. This is like watching a bully bully another bully. Arya probably knows that the best thing she could do is walk away from her family, like other protagonists in her villainess genre. But instead, we get the story of a girl who actively engages and revels in the shit show. The only problem at the moment is that Arya is essentially playing a one-player game. Everyone around her is basically dumb, and I think the authors know it. Miel isn't quite ready to tackle Arya at her current level, so she doesn't really have anyone to fight against. As much fun as it is to watch Arya run circles around these fools, the stakes are pretty low. The natural next step is to introduce a formidable opponent to Arya's game. As of the time of creating this video, I haven't quite read past this point for a little while, so my memory is a bit hazy. But I do believe someone like that comes around. Oh, and I'm aware that there's going to be some development with the Crown Prince in later chapters. At the very least, I highly suspect there will be. The writing's on the wall. Oscar is basically going to inherit the title of Duke one day, and if you recall what I once said about Asian webtoons, the greater your beauty and social status, the higher the likelihood that a male character ends up with our heroine. I may be mistaken, but I suspect Asher might just be that crown prince. I could be wrong. I haven't read far enough into this webtoon to confidently make that claim, but I suspect it to be true. Please don't spoil it for me. Unlike some of the other webtoons I reviewed, I'm sort of just reviewing this one as I see them. So, why am I doing that? I don't know. I love Arya as a character, but I really don't want another webtoon webcomic on my really long list of things I regularly keep up to date with. As such, I'd rather wait for this whole thing to finish before I read it all in one go. I don't think there's much else to say about Arya and Miel. These chapters I reviewed simply serve to reinforce what we know about those two, so I've not much else to say besides singing Arya's praises. Hold on, wait up. Yes, Lanepino. My man. The first male character to not be completely dumb. Doesn't mean he's smart, but he hasn't been a total idiot so far. At the very least, he makes other facial expressions aside from grimacing, glaring, or goo-goo eyeing. His inclusion in the story is to shake up Arya a bit so she doesn't get too comfortable playing Kingpin to a series of glorious, pettiest schemes. As such, he's important to our story. Not only is he a fresh new face to look at, but he's even preluding the introduction of a crown prince. Yeah, he's super important. No, I'm not being biased. Shut up, it's my review. If I say he's important, then he's important. And he's important. Right. Many of you probably watched the first video, so you know that I can recommend this story wholeheartedly. Either way, I plan to read more and maybe create a part 3. However, I kinda wanted to diversify the catalog a bit and get some other titles in. So yeah. In any case, thanks for watching folks. Let me know if you think doing multiple parts to a series is redundant or irrelevant, so I can focus on shedding light onto other titles. Either way, that's all for this video. Weebtooner, signing off.